Stop what you're doing. Picture this. You're alone in a desert. No water, no phone, just you and miles of sand. The night's cold, biting your skin. You hear it, a whisper, soft, calling your name. You spin around, heart pounding, but it's just darkness. Then you see them, glowing eyes, red as blood, staring from the shadows. They don't blink. They don't move. They know you're here, and they're coming closer. Hey, you fearless folks. Welcome back to the creepiest spot on YouTube, where we hunt down true stories that'll make your skin crawl. Tonight, we're diving deep into the desert. A scary, empty place where the sun fries you by day, and the night hides things that don't play nice. These are 3 scary, true desert horror stories that'll stick with you, haunt your dreams, and make you swear off road trips forever. Grab a snack, kill the lights, and buckle up. This is going to be a wild, spooky ride. Before we start, do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single chill. Got a creepy desert story? Maybe you heard something weird camping? Saw lights that didn't make sense? Drop it in the comments. I'm dying to know. And stick with us, because these stories are real, they're twisted, and they're gonna blow your mind. Let's jump into the darkness. Story 1. The Whispering Dunes. Our first story is about Ethan Caldwell, a 28-year-old guy from San Diego with a hunger for thrills. Ethan wasn't your average dude. He'd climbed cliffs in Yosemite, kayaked rapids in Colorado, and spent weekends exploring the Mojave Desert like it was his backyard. To him, the desert was freedom. Big, wild, and full of secrets he loved to chase. But in the summer of 2019, Ethan found a secret he wished he'd left alone. Something in the dunes was waiting, and it knew his name. Ethan planned a 3-day hike through a super remote corner of the Mojave, 40 miles of sand, rocks, and nothing else. He was ready, or so he thought. He packed smart, 4 liters of water and a tough camelback, a GPS with extra batteries, satellite phone for emergencies, a lightweight tent, and a small notebook to sketch the landscape. He'd hiked this area before, knew the trails, the way the sun carved shadows. He kissed his girlfriend, Mia, goodbye, promised to text when he was back and hit the road, his old Jeep rattling toward the desert. Day 1 was brutal. The sun was a monster, blasting heat that made the air shimmer. Ethan's shirt was soaked by 9 a.m., sweat stinging his eyes. He sipped his water carefully, knowing he had to make it last. The desert was quiet, just the crunch of his boots and his own breathing. By noon, his water was half gone, and the heat was messing with his head. He needed shade, fast, or he'd be cooked. Ethan spotted a cave, a narrow slit in a rocky hill, barely big enough to crawl into. It looked like a mouth, jagged and dark, but it was cool inside, a break from the sun's claws. He squeezed in, his backpack scraping the walls, and sat on the rough floor. The air was damp, almost sticky, and smelled like old stone. He pulled out his water, took a small sip, and checked his map, tracing the trail with a finger. Everything was fine. Then he heard it. A whisper. Soft, like someone breathing too close, but wrong. It wasn't words, but it felt alive, like it was reaching for him. It came from deeper in the cave, where the light died. Ethan's heart jumped. He fumbled for his flashlight, clicking it on, the beam shaky in his hand. He swept it across the cave. Nothing but rocks, dust, and shadows that seemed to twist when he wasn't looking. The whispering grew, not louder but closer, like voices overlapping, muttering secrets he wasn't meant to hear. He shouted, "Hello." His voice bounced, off the walls, sounding small. No answer, just the whispers, now circling him, brushing his ears. His skin crawled. He grabbed his pack and scrambled out, the cave's mouth spitting him back into the heat. Ethan stood there, panting, telling himself it was nothing. Caves play tricks, right? Wind gets trapped, makes weird noises. He laughed, but it sounded fake, even to him. He hiked on, the desert stretching endless around him, the dunes like frozen waves. But the feeling didn't leave. It was like the desert was watching, waiting for him to slip up. He kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting to see someone, or something, following him. Ethan wasn't new to being alone. He'd always loved the quiet of the wilderness, the way it stripped life down to just you and the earth. Back home, Mia would tease him, saying he loved the desert more than her. He'd laugh, pull her close, and say, "The desert doesn't nag me about dishes." But now, that quiet felt heavy, like a weight on his chest. He thought about Mia, her soft brown eyes, the way she'd hug him after a trip smelling like lavender. He wished he'd called her before he left just to hear her voice. He trudged on, the sun climbing higher, turning the sand into a mirror that threw heat back at him. His throat was dry, his tongue sticking to the roof of his mouth. He checked his water, less than 2 liters left, and he still had 2 days to go. "Pace yourself," he muttered, his voice rough. He tried to focus on the trail, following. Faint markers, twisted shrubs, a pile of rocks, but the desert was playing tricks. Landmarks he swore he'd passed kept reappearing, like the dunes were shifting when he wasn't looking. By mid-afternoon, Ethan's legs were heavy, his boots sinking into the sand with every step. He stopped to rest, leaning against a boulder, its surface hot enough to sting through his shirt. He pulled out his notebook, trying to sketch the dunes, but his hand wouldn't cooperate. The lines came out jagged, like claws. He snapped the book shut, his breath ragged. That's when he noticed the silence. No birds, no bugs, just the faint hiss of sand moving in the wind. It was too quiet, like the desert was holding its breath. Ethan shook his head, trying to clear the fog. "Get it together," he told himself. He'd been in tough spots before, stuck in a rainstorm in the Sierras, lost in fog on a coastal trail. He always found a way out. But this felt different. The desert wasn't just big, it was alive, watching him, testing him. He checked his GPS, the screen flickering, showing his position jumping miles in seconds. "Come on," he growled, smacking it. The screen went black. He cursed, loud enough to echo, then froze. The echo didn't sound right. It was too sharp, too close, like someone else had shouted back. Ethan's pulse raced. He spun around, scanning. The dunes, nothing, just sand and sky, blending into a hazy line. He told himself it was his imagination, but his hands were shaking as he stuffed the GPS back in his pack. He kept moving, faster now, his boots kicking up clouds of dust. The whispers were back, faint but growing, like a radio tuning in. They weren't in his head, weren't they? Ethan heard them, clear as day, circling him, weaving through the air. He couldn't tell where they were coming from. Everywhere, nowhere, all at once. Ethan's breath came in short gasps. He'd read about desert mirages, how heat could mess with your eyes, but this wasn't shimmering water or a fake oasis. These shadows were real, or close enough. He thought about stories he'd heard from old-timers at the trailhead, tales of lost miners, cursed lands, spirits that guarded the desert. He'd laughed them off, called them campfire yarns. Now those stories felt too close, too heavy, like warnings he should have heeded. That night, Ethan set up his tent in a small valley, the dunes towering like silent giants. The sky was the explosion of stars, so bright they seemed to pulse. He'd always loved the desert's night sky, but tonight it felt wrong, like the stars were eyes, watching, judging. The air was still, too still. No breeze, no crickets, just a silence that pressed against his eardrums. He crawled into his tent, zipped it tight, and turned on his lantern, its weak glow barely touching the dark. Ethan lay on his sleeping pad, knife under his pillow, his body aching. He tried to think of Mia, of home, but the whispers kept pulling him back. They were louder now, a chorus of voices, some soft, some sharp, like they were arguing over him. He clutched the knife, his knuckles, white, and whispered, "This isn't real, it's not real." But the whispers didn't care. They grew, filling the tent, his head, his bones, saying his name, Ethan, Ethan, in a tone that wasn't human. Around 2 a.m., Ethan jolted awake, his heart slamming. The whispering was right outside, circling the tent, a wall of sound that made his ears ring. He unzipped the flap, just a crack, his breath shallow. The desert was silver under the moonlight, the dunes smooth, untouched. He was about to close it when he saw them. Footprints. Bare, almost human, but wrong. Too long, too thin, with claw-like marks at the toes. They circled his tent in a perfect ring, deep and fresh, like something had been pacing, watching. All night. Ethan's blood froze. He stared at the tracks, his mind scrambling. No human could walk barefoot in the Mojave at night. The sand was too cold, too sharp. An animal? Coyotes didn't have feet like that. Mountain lions didn't circle like this. He fumbled for his phone, hands trembling, and snapped a photo, the flash bleaching the sand white. The image was blurry, but the footprints were there, undeniable. He zipped the tent shut, his breath hitching, and sat, knife in hand, eyes locked on the flap. The whispers were a storm now, screaming his name, laughing, taunting. He prayed, words he hadn't said since he was a kid, begging for the sun to rise. Dawn came slow, the sky turning gray, then pink. Ethan stumbled out, his body heavy, his throat raw. He checked the footprints, expecting them to be gone, a hallucination from the heat. They weren't. The tracks were deeper, sharper, like whatever made them was heavier, angrier. He took another photo, his hands unsteady, then packed up, moving fast. His water was low, maybe a liter left, and his GPS was dead, the screen black no matter how many times he smacked it. He tried the satellite phone. Nothing, just static that sounded like whispers. Ethan was lost. The dunes looked the same, endless, mocking. He walked, his boots dragging, his head pounding. The whispers followed, a constant drone sometimes, forming words, stay, ours, mine, that made his skin prickle. He started seeing the shadows clearer, tall, thin, like stretched men with no faces, flickering at the horizon. He'd turn, shouting, "What do you want?" But they vanished, leaving swirls in the sand. He was dehydrated, he knew that, but this wasn't just thirst. This was something else, something that wanted him. Day 2 was hell. Ethan's water was a few sips, his lips cracked, bleeding, his head pounding like a drum. The sun was cruel, burning his skin red, making every step feel like walking on fire. The whispers were a chorus now, loud and chaotic, sometimes laughing, sometimes screaming. He saw the shadows clearer, tall, no faces, just dark shapes that moved when he blinked. He yelled, "Leave me alone." His voice was hoarse, barely, a croak, swallowed by the desert. He tripped, face slamming into the sand, grains stinging his eyes, filling his mouth. He spat, coughing, and pushed himself up. That's when he saw them again, fresh footprints, crisscrossing his path, there, clawed toes glinting in the sun. They weren't human, weren't animal. They were something else, something that didn't belong. He scrambled back, heart hammering, and checked his pack. The water was gone. The last drop spilled in his fall. his throat burned, his vision blurring. But the footprints were sharp, real, a message he couldn't ignore. Ethan ran, legs wobbling, pack bouncing. The whispers laughed, a cruel, echoing cackle that followed him. The shadows were closer, their shapes clearer. Tall, skeletal, with limbs too long, heads featureless. They didn't move, didn't chase, just stood, a circle of silent judges. He screamed, "Leave me alone." But the desert swallowed his voice, leaving only the whispers, now a roar, filling his skull. He saw Mia's face in his mind, her smile, and clung to it, a lifeline in the dark. The sun dipped, painting the dunes red, like blood soaking the sand. Ethan's body was giving up, his knees buckling, his breath a wheeze. He collapsed against a rock, its heat searing through his shirt. The whispers were deafening, a storm of voices, some pleading, some raging, all saying his name. Ethan. Ethan. He clutched his knife, the blade trembling in his hand, and scanned the horizon. The shadows were everywhere, a ring of dark sentinels, their eyeless gazes boring into him. He prayed, words tumbling out. "Please, God, get me out of this." But the desert didn't answer. It watched, waited, savored his fear. That's when he saw the lights, blue, glowing orbs, floating above the dunes like lost stars. They pulsed, slow and steady, a heartbeat in the dark. Ethan's chest heaved, hope flickering. "Help!" he croaked, staggering toward them. They were a town, a road, salvation. He ran, sand sucking at his boots, his voice cracking as he yelled, "I'm here, please." But the lights moved, drifting farther, always out of reach. He stumbled, realization hitting like a punch. They weren't help. They were bait, luring him deeper, a trap set by the desert itself. Ethan crawled, nails splitting, skin raw. The lights circled, closer now, their glow cold, unnatural. The shadows loomed, their forms sharper, like charred branches twisted into human shapes. They didn't speak, didn't move, just watched, their silence heavier than the whispers. Ethan's vision swam, black spots dancing, but he saw them clearly, faceless, endless, a jury of the damned. He whispered, "I'm sorry," to Mia, to God, to the desert. The lights pulsed, the whispers screamed, and the world went dark. When Ethan woke, he was in a hospital in Barstow, tubes in his arms, nurses murmuring. "Lucky to be alive," one said, her voice soft. A park ranger had found him, half buried, in sand, 20 miles from his Jeep. His pack, phone, photos, gone, erased, like they'd never existed. Ethan's voice was weak, his eyes hollow. "The mining camp," he rasped. "I found it, the journal." The ranger frowned, shaking his head. "No camp out there, son, not for 100 miles. Never was." Ethan didn't argue. He knew what he saw, what he heard. The whispers, the lights, the shadows. They were real, etched into his bones. He left the desert behind, moved to San Francisco, took a desk job, swore he'd never go back. But the desert followed him. At night, when the city's quiet, he hears them. Whispers, faint but there, calling his name. He sleeps with a light on, checks his locks, lives in fear they'll find him again. Was it a ghost? A demon? Or something older? Something the deserts kept hidden for centuries? The Mojave's full of secrets, things that don't like being found. Ethan's story makes you wonder, what's out there, in the sand, waiting? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think he saw. Before we hit our next story, let's talk about why deserts feel so creepy. For thousands of years, people have told scary tales about these places. Native tribes in the Mojave spoke of shadow spirits, tall, faceless things that tricked travelers with whispers or lights. Bedouin in the Sahara warned of jinn, fiery creatures that haunt the dunes, stealing souls. Even now, truckers and campers swap stories of weird lights, creepy tracks, things that don't add up. Is it just the heat playing tricks? Or is something out there, something old, that doesn't like us poking around? The Mojave's history is soaked in mystery. Ancient petroglyphs show tall, thin figures, their heads blank, carved by people who vanished long ago. Spanish explorers wrote of cursed lands, places where men disappeared, lured by voices in the wind. Miners in the 1800s told of ghost camps, shacks that appeared at night, gone by dawn. The Paiute people have a legend, a spirit called the Night Stalker, a hunter of the lost, its eyes glowing red. These stories aren't just tales, they're warnings, passed down, etched in stone and memory. Modern science says it's all in our heads. Dehydration, heat stroke, mirages, they mess with your brain, make you see ghosts. But not every story's so easy to explain. In the 1970s, a hiker vanished in the Mojave, his journal found years later, full of sketches of clawed footprints and words like, "They're watching." In 2005, a pilot reported blue lights over the desert, moving too fast, too strange, before his radio died. These aren't one-offs, they're patterns, threads in a web we don't fully see. Why do these stories stick with us? Maybe it's the desert's vastness, the way it dwarfs you, makes you feel small. Maybe it's the silence, so deep it screams. Or maybe it's something real, something that's been here longer than us, waiting for us to wander too far. Think about that as we dive into our next tale. The desert's got more secrets, and they're not all friendly. Story 2. The Vanishing Caravan. Our second story takes us to the Sahara Desert, spring of 2017. 6 friends, college kids from London, were on a gap year adventure. Sarah, Tom, Emma, Liam, Chloe, and James. Young, fearless, chasing epic stories for their socials. They signed up for a camel caravan tour, dreaming of starry nights and Insta-worthy sunsets. But the Sahara's no playground. It's a beast, and these kids were walking into its jaws. The group joined a small caravan led by Ammar, a Bedouin guide in his 50s, his face carved by years of sun and sand. Ammar was quiet, his eyes sharp, his hands steady as he poured tea by the fire. He'd spent his life in the Sahara, knew its moods, its tricks. The kids loved his stories, tales of lost traders, hidden oases, but his one rule hit hard. Stay close. The desert doesn't forgive. They nodded, grinning, too busy snapping selfies to listen. For 2 days, it was magic. They rode camels, their laughter echoing, sang pop songs off-key, watched sunsets that set the sky ablaze. The Sahara was huge, golden, like another world. Sarah, 21, was the quiet one, always sketching in her journal, her dark hair tied back. She'd hesitated about the trip. Crowds weren't her thing, but Emma, her best friend, had begged. "It'll be epic," Emma said, her green eyes sparkling. Sarah caved, and now, bouncing on a camel, she was glad she did. But on the third night, the desert showed its teeth. They camped near a massive dune, its shadow stretching like a claw. The air was thick, heavy, like it was pressing down. The stars were too bright, almost alive, staring back. Sarah woke around, midnight, needing to pee. She grabbed her flashlight, its beam wobbly, and stepped away from camp, the sand cold under her sandals. That's when she saw them. Lights, small, flickering, like candles dancing in the distance. Sarah squinted, heart picking up. Another caravan, maybe? Nomads with lanterns? "Hello?" she called, her voice thin, swallowed by the night. No answer. The lights blinked, then vanished, like they'd never been. Her stomach twisted, a childhood fear creeping in, dark basements, her brother's pranks, locking her in. She shook. It off, ran back to camp, and shook Emma awake. "I saw lights," Sarah whispered, breathless. Emma groaned, rubbing her eyes. Probably just a car. But Amar was up, standing by the dying fire, staring where the lights had been. His face was pale, his jaw tight. "What were they?" Sarah asked. He didn't answer, just muttered in Arabic, then snapped, "Pack. Up, we leave now." The group scrambled, half asleep, tripping over gear. Tom, the loud one, grumbled, "This is stupid." Liam, twitchy, kept dropping his bag. Emma, calm as ever, helped Chloe, the dreamer, stuff her sleeping roll. James, the joker, tried a weak laugh. "What, we running from fireflies?" But Amar's voice cut through, sharp, scared. "Move." The kids froze. They'd never seen him like this, his cool gone, eyes wild. They climbed onto the camels, the beasts snorting, and started moving, Amar whipping them faster than ever. That's when they heard it, a chant, low and wrong, like a warped prayer. It wasn't one voice, it was dozens, echoing from the dunes, sinking into their bones. Sarah gripped her reins, heart pounding. "What's that?" she yelled. Amar didn't answer, just urged the camels on, his face a mask of fear. The chanting grew, louder, closer, vibrating the air. Tom shouted, "What the hell, man?" But Amar ignored him, eyes locked on the horizon. Then, out of nowhere, a sandstorm hit, a roaring wall of yellow and black. The storm was a monster, sand stinging their faces, wind tearing at their clothes. The camels bellowed, bucking, as the group clung on, screaming. Sarah grabbed Emma's arm, their fingers locked, but the storm ripped them apart. Liam's voice cracked. "Help!" Chloe sobbed, her scarf gone. Tom cursed, lost in the blur. James vanished, swallowed whole. The world was chaos, a choking, blinding hell. Then, silence. The storm stopped, sudden as a slammed door. The friends were alone. No camels, no gear, no Amar. Just 6 kids, lost in the Sahara's grip. They shouted, voices hoarse, "Amar, anyone!" But the desert ate their words. Their phones were dead, screens blank. Their water, food, bags, gone, buried, or stolen. Sarah's flashlight was all they had, its beam fading fast. Tom, red-faced, yelled, "This is his fault!" Liam shook, muttering, "We're dead. We're so dead." Emma, steady, said, "We walk east. Sun rises there." But the desert laughed, its dunes shifting, its horizon lying. That night, the lights came back, brighter, circling like wolves. Chloe pointed, voice trembling. "They're people. Look." Sarah squinted, heart sinking. Figures, cloaked, faceless, held the lights, standing still as death. Liam threw a rock, screaming, "Get out of here!" The lights blinked out, the figures gone, but the chanting roared back, mocking, cruel. The group huddled, Sarah's flashlight dying, the dark closing in. They walked for days, their bodies breaking. Emma fell first, too weak to stand. James was next, mumbling about eyes in the dark. Chloe stopped, staring at the lights, saying, "They're calling us." Sarah begged them to keep going, her legs jelly, her voice gone. By the 5th day, she was alone, crawling, nails, bloody. She saw the figures clearly, tall, shrouded, no faces, just shadows. They didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. She screamed for help, for God, for anything. Then, nothing. Sarah woke in a hospital in Marrakesh, tubes in her arms, a nomad's face above her. He'd found her, buried in sand, 50 miles from the caravan's path. The others? Gone. Search teams combed the desert for weeks. Nothing. No camels, no bags, no bodies. The police said it was a storm. Bad luck. Sarah says it was no storm. She says the desert wanted them, that those lights were alive. She sleeps with a light on now, terrified of the dark. Bedouin elders talk of a spirit, an old angry thing that takes travelers. Was it real, or did the Sahara break them? You tell me. You've been sending me some seriously creepy desert stories, and I'm shook. Last month I asked for your scariest experiences, and you delivered. Let's dive into a few. These are wild, and they'll make you think twice about desert road trips. Keep 'em coming, and maybe your story's next. First up, Lisa from Arizona. She was driving through the Sonoran Desert, late at night, radio off, just her and the road. Around 1 a.m., the radio crackles, and a voice, clear, deep, says, "Turn back." No music, no station, just that voice, cold as ice. Lisa checks the dial. Nothing. Dead air. Her heart's racing, hands sweaty on the wheel. The voice comes again, louder. "Turn back now." She floors it, hitting 90, not stopping till she's out of the desert. She hasn't driven that road. Since, says she feels the voice watching her. Next, Mike from California. He's camping solo in Death Valley, middle of nowhere. Just him and his tent. He wakes at dawn, feeling off, like someone's close. He checks outside. Handprints, small, like a kid's, pressed into his tent's fabric, circling it. Mike's alone, no kids for miles, no tracks leading to or from the tent. His skin crawls, gut screaming to run. He tears the tent down, burns it right there, and hauls ass out. He swears those prints weren't human, says he sees them in nightmares. These stories give me chills, and I know you've got more. Drop your desert nightmares in the comments. Lights, voices, tracks, whatever. Freaked you out. I read everyone. And the best might make the next video. Story 3. The Red Eyes of Route 50. Our final story takes us to Nevada, fall of 2021, on Route 50, America's loneliest road. Marcus Reed, 42, was a trucker, hauling produce from Reno to Salt Lake City. Marcus was a pro, 15 years on the road, seen it all. Blizzards, breakdowns, sketchy hitchhikers. He wasn't scared of much. But that night, something found him. Something that wasn't human. Something with eyes like fire. It was 3 a.m., the road empty, the desert black as tar. Marcus sipped cold, coffee, eyes heavy, fighting sleep. He was thinking of Ellie, his daughter, 19, off at college. She'd texted him earlier, a goofy selfie with her dorm mates. He smiled, picturing her grin, then frowned as the radio cut out. Static buzzed, sharp, then nothing. He smacked it, muttering, "Not tonight, damn it." The silence was heavy, thicker than usual, like the air was holding its breath. That's when he saw them. 2 red lights, glowing like coals, hovering off the road. Marcus squinted, easing off the gas. A car with busted taillights? But the lights didn't move. They floated, 6 feet high, staring, unblinking. His gut twisted. He'd heard driver stories, ghosts, UFOs, things you don't say sober. The lights were brighter now, pulsing, alive, like eyes locked on him. He slowed the truck, headlights weak against the dark, his palms sweaty on the wheel. Marcus stopped, heart thudding, his gut screaming to keep driving, but he couldn't look away. He grabbed his flashlight, heavy in his hand, and stepped out, boots crunching gravel. The air was wrong, thick, pressing his lungs like breathing mud. The desert was silent. No wind, no critters, just those red eyes, closer now, burning through the dark. He shouted, "Anyone there?" His voice was small, eaten by the night. No answer. Just the eyes, unyielding, watching. His flashlight flickered, then died, plunging him into black. Marcus backed up, pulse racing, the eyes inches from the truck. That's when he saw it. A shape, tall, hunched, just behind the lights. It wasn't human, wasn't animal. Its edges blurred, like smoke, its form melting into the dark. The red eyes pulsed, boring into him, seeing through him. Marcus scrambled into the cab, slamming the door, keys shaking in his hand. He turned the ignition. Nothing. The engine was dead, the dash dark, the truck a coffin. Marcus sat, frozen, the eyes outside his window, inches away, glowing like hellfire. He saw Ellie's face, her laugh, and whispered, "I'm sorry, kid." He prayed, words clumsy, to a god he'd ignored since his wife died. The thing didn't move, didn't speak, just watched, its silence louder than screams. Hours crawled, each second a blade. Marcus's hands shook, his breath shallow, his mind looping. Ellie, the road, those eyes. Dawn broke, gray light creeping over the dunes. The eyes vanished, gone like they'd never been. The truck roared to life, dash glowing, engine humming. Marcus floored it, tires spitting gravel, not stopping till he hit a diner, its neon sign buzzing. He spilled his story to a waitress, hands trembling, coffee untouched. She nodded, unsurprised. "You saw it," she said, voice low. "You're lucky it let you go." Marcus quit trucking, moved closer to Ellie, swore off Route 50. But the eyes followed him. In quiet moments he sees them, red, glowing, in mirrors, in dreams. Other drivers know the stories, dead radios, shapes in the dark, eyes that don't blink. Locals tie it to a Paiute legend, a spirit called the Night Stalker, hunting the lonely. Marcus says it wasn't a ghost, wasn't a coyote. It was something else, something that knew his name. What was it? A creature? A spirit? Or just the desert? Breaking him? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. What did Marcus see on Route 50? If these tales gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more true horror every day. I'm dropping new stories, ghost towns, haunted roads, things that go bump in the night. Hit the bell so you don't miss a single scare. Got a desert story? Maybe you saw lights, heard voices, found tracks that didn't fit? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and the creepiest might make the next video. Share this video with your friends. See if they're brave enough to watch alone. And one last thing. Next time you're driving through the desert, keep your eyes on the road. And whatever you do, don't stop. Not for lights. Not for whispers. Not for anything.